Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon. Thank you, Ms. Chairman, for the kind introduction. Distinguished panelists, ladies and gentlemen. I'm very embarrassed, but I have to tell you that this is my first visit to Manila, although I have many, many good Filipino friends. I would like to speak to you in the spirit of one of my most admired leaders now, which is President Duterte, which is to celebrate Tapang at Malasakit. Is that correct? For John, who doesn't know Tagalog, it means courage and care. Ladies and gentlemen, trade and investment as a catalyst for peace and regional stability. Please allow me to speak in simple terms. 400 years ago, such statement would have been considered absurd at worst and a propaganda at best. It was absurd because there were really no trade as we understand it today. There were some exchanges, yes, but mostly on inequitable terms that were shadowed by threats of violence, by stronger countries against weaker ones. It was a propaganda because it was used to mask one-sided exchanges. The arrangement was obvious. If you do not agree to the consideration, I will just rob it of you. The reason for rudimentary compensation of the exchange were only to encourage the weaker to keep the charade going on. It was only when threats of violence were not conveniently feasible that some measure of consensus in the exchanges occurred. Hence, big-time trade expositions were always accompanied by military hardware. So understandably, trade and war became inextricably linked. But trade was not the term we use as we understand it today. So to discuss it as if it is futile. Today, the world is a global village, which automatically removes the previous understanding of the meaning of that word. If I don't want to sell to you, I am as free to sell to the other guy. Free and consensual as best as it can possibly be. Not the free trade that we used to go to war for, not the favored nation status that we fought for ourselves. In fact, violent arm twisting is counterproductive in the present scenario. So it is in that context that the topic of our discussion becomes relevant. So if one strong country takes over some unpopulated islands, barely hiding behind the maxim that might is right, only for the purposes of owning whatever there are under those islands, and not negotiating with the competing claims, nor interacting with any of the natives because there are none, you can bet that that area would be plagued by tensions and instability no matter how strong you are. And that is the reality today. That's the beautiful thing about trade. There is now a platform to negotiate to reach a lasting, comfortable mercantile relationship. You can't negotiate with a gunboat. So nowadays, trade pacts are the order of the day, not treaties like regional defense and the like. It is heartening to note that efforts are being made to establish stronger relationships between these countries. In my country, Malaysia, even here in the Philippines, efforts are being made to assure each other of continuing commitments by using investments, to assure each other of commitments in each other's future. This forebode well for peace and stability. On the other hand, there is someone who believes that trade agreements are indirectly dangerous things. They so-called rob the countries of jobs, and they allow unfettered mixing of minnows and with giants. So he wants to build walls and restrict travel to be made great again. How a powerful country had supposedly negotiated itself into this supposed hole beats me. Already Mexico is threatening tariffs, a trade restriction if the wall is built. So where do you sell your stuff? They can buy it elsewhere. The global village allows for that. So let's see if able-bodied white Americans will be picking berries next few summers, or the Chinese, in support of its newfound friends, continue to buy your wheat and soybean. Trade is what makes the world go round. It is no longer mercantile adventurism of centuries old. It can empower weaker countries to stand up and be counted. What I mean to point out is, trade is now a tool in search of a win-win agreement. It may not be the answer to global peace, but it is definitely a catalyst to do that, to the end. Why? For the simple reasons that equitable trade in the form that it has to be today, as close as possible, brings prosperity for the participants. And trade can only flourish in a stable environment, and it follows that it is definitely a catalyst for the creation of lasting peace. The geopolitics of today is imperatively trade politics. Without the gunboats, the Trans-Pacific Partnership is one such facilitation. Any isolationist that choose to view such arrangements as restrictive is actually a suspect for unilateral power player. Such an ego-blasting seeker is anti-trade and as such anti-peace. A catalyst for peace presupposes that it is a tool for peace. A relevant example is that intra-regional peace can be achieved by using trade as a tool. Say, for example, if the perceived persecution of Rohingyas in Myanmar is threatening regional stability because of the spillover of refugees to Malaysia, efforts to persuade Myanmar towards action towards a solution for the internal Rohingya problem can be embodied in trade. For example, the human trade services trade that allows Myanmar to export its workers to my country could be threatened to be called off. While there are other countries from which Malaysia can get its workers, Malaysia is about the only country Myanmar sends its workers to. The devastating effect to Myanmar's economy may compel it to act as an internal issue. Restricting trade is not an act for revenge in this case, because Malaysia is not inherently attached to the problem. It is a kind of trade sanction, but it's a convenient, non-violent tool to coerce regional stability and peace without the need for military enforcement, unlike other kinds of sanctions. Hinterland trade among intra-regional countries keep their population interacting with each other. Intra-regional trade offset the tensions that may occur as a result of close proximity. So it is important, if your country is a backyard of a superpower, it is important that that superpower facilitate increased trade with it. It makes good geopolitical sense, unlike wars that alienate. So if centuries ago, it is trade that were the reason to provoke war, today, because internal relations are such, it is conversely the tool for peace. Trade sanction is one way to abuse it, but it is submitted that unilateral sanction in a multipolar world that we are coming to would be difficult to enforce. Trade and investment allows for reciprocity, and it may be that balance that may stop the boat from rocking. Maraming salamat. Thank you very much.